1. We're diving into a classic beauty that's up for grabs on Craigslist. A 1961 Chevrolet Bel Air, priced at $12,500. This vintage gem is a true head-turner, and the seller's description paints a pretty impressive picture. First off, let's talk about the condition. The seller mentions that this Bel Air is a very clean original car and is rust-free. That's music to any classic car lover's ears. Rust can be a real nightmare when it comes to older vehicles, so knowing that this one is free of that pesky problem is a huge plus. Now let's get to the good stuff, the performance. Under the hood, you'll find a 350 engine paired with a turbo 350 automatic transmission, which should provide plenty of power and smooth shifting. The seller also mentions that the car has CPP disc brakes, which is a great upgrade from the original drum brakes. This means better stopping power and increased safety, which is always a good thing. The seller has also given this Bel Air some fresh new shoes in the form of new torque thrust wheels and tires. Not only do they look great, but they'll also provide better grip and handling on the road. Lastly, the seller notes that the car comes with a clean California title. This is important because it means that the car has no major issues or discrepancies in its history, giving you peace of mind when making the purchase. Overall, based on the seller's description, this 1961 Chevrolet Bel Air seems to be in excellent condition. It's got a strong engine, upgraded brakes, new wheels and tires, and a clean title. If you're in the market for a classic car with plenty of style and performance, this one is definitely worth checking out. Just remember, as with any used car purchase, it's always a good idea to see the vehicle in person and have a trusted mechanic give it a once-over before making a final decision. 2. We've got a real treat for you, a 1976 Oldsmobile Cutlass that's up for grabs on Craigslist. This beauty is priced at $24,000, and based on the seller's description, it seems like it could be worth every penny. First things first, let's talk about those miles. This Cutlass has only 27,660 original miles on the odometer. That's incredibly low for a car that's over 45 years old. It's clear that this car has been well cared for throughout its life, and the fact that it's always been garaged is a testament to that. Now let's talk about the condition. The seller mentions that the car has undergone a recent high-quality repaint and undercoat, which is a great sign. It means that the body is likely in excellent shape, and the new paint job should make it look stunning. The seller also mentions that the car has a new dual exhaust system, which is a nice touch. Moving on to the interior, this Cutlass is loaded with features. It's got bucket seats, a floor shifter, deluxe AC, power seats and windows, cruise control, and a tilt steering wheel. These are all great features to have, especially in a classic car like this. Under the hood, you'll find a Rocket 350 V8 engine with a new Edelbrock carburetor. This should provide plenty of power and a smooth ride. The seller also mentions that the car has new tires, which is important for both safety and performance. Lastly, the seller notes that the car has a clean California title in their name. This is always a good sign, as it means that the car has no major issues or discrepancies in its history. Overall, based on the seller's description, this 1976 Oldsmobile Cutlass seems to be in excellent condition. The low mileage, recent repaint, and new parts all suggest that this car has been well maintained and cared for. The interior features and powerful engine are just icing on the cake. If you're in the market for a classic car that's ready to hit the road, this one is definitely worth checking out. As always, be sure to see the car in person and have a trusted mechanic give it a once-over before making a final decision. 3. We've got a real project car that's sure to get your engine revving. A 1970 Chevy Camaro that's up for sale on Craigslist. This beauty is priced at $30,000, but before you start reaching for your wallet, let's dive into the details. First off, the seller mentions that this Camaro is a project car that's about 90% complete. They're moving out of state and need to replace it with a boat, which is why they're selling. It's important to keep in mind that while the car is almost complete, it's not quite there yet. Now, let's talk about the condition. The seller lists the condition as excellent, but it's important to take that with a grain of salt. This is a project car after all, and it's going to need some work to get it into truly excellent shape. The seller mentions that the car needs a front window, which is a pretty significant piece of the puzzle. On the bright side, the seller has done a lot of work on this Camaro already. They've installed new floors, wheel wells, and trunk, and have done some paint work as well. The undercarriage has been restored with re-oxide, and the lines, brakes, tires, and wheels have all been replaced. The engine has been rebuilt, and the M20 transmission has been rebuilt as well. The interior has also been redone, although the original deluxe door panels need to be reconditioned. One of the most exciting things about this Camaro is that it's got a numbers-matching M20 transmission and a 70 date-coded block. This means that the engine and transmission are original to the car, which is a big deal for collectors and enthusiasts. Overall, this 1970 Chevy Camaro is a project car that's not for the faint of heart. It's going to need some work to get it into top shape, but the seller has already done a lot of the heavy lifting. If you're a Camaro enthusiast who's looking for a project to sink your teeth into, this one might be worth checking out. Just be sure to do your due diligence and have a trusted mechanic take a look at it before making any final decisions. 4. We've got a classic 1973 Ford Mustang convertible that's looking for a new home. This pony is up for sale on Craigslist with an asking price of $16,000. But before you gallop off to the bank, let's take a closer look at what we've got here. First things first, the seller mentions that they purchased this Mustang at a car show, which is a good sign. It means that the car was likely in good enough condition to be showcased, and it caught the seller's eye. The seller also notes that the car runs and drives, which is always a plus. However, there are a few things to keep in mind. The seller mentions that the odometer is broken, which means we don't know the actual mileage on this classic. This could be a red flag for some buyers, as it makes it harder to gauge the overall wear and tear on the car. The seller also notes that the car could use a new exhaust system. This is a relatively common issue with older cars, and it's not necessarily a deal breaker. However, it's something to keep in mind when considering the overall cost of the car. Now let's talk about the good stuff. This is a convertible Mustang, which means you can drop the top and feel the wind in your hair as you cruise down the highway. The seller also has the title for the car, which is important for any classic car purchase. Unfortunately, the seller doesn't provide a ton of details about the overall condition of the car. They don't mention anything about rust, the condition of the interior, or any recent maintenance or upgrades. This is where you'll want to do your due diligence and ask plenty of questions before making an offer. Overall, this 1973 Ford Mustang convertible could be a great project car for the right buyer. It runs and drives, has a clean title, and has the potential to be a real head-turner with some TLC. However, the broken odometer and lack of detailed information about the car's condition means that you'll want to proceed with caution. If you're serious about this Mustang, be sure to ask the seller for more information and have a trusted mechanic take a look at it before making any final decisions. 5. We've got a real gem on our hands, a 1967 Cadillac Eldorado that's up for grabs on Craigslist. This beauty is priced at $21,000, and based on the seller's description, it seems like it could be a great buy for the right person. First off, let's talk about the condition. The seller mentions that the car is very solid and runs well, which is always a good sign. They also note that they're not aware of any major mechanical problems, which is reassuring. However, it's important to keep in mind that this is a vehicle that's over 50 years old, so some wear and tear is to be expected. The seller does mention a couple of minor rust spots, but they also note that there's no rust on the undercarriage, which is a big plus. Rust can be a real problem with older cars, so it's good to know that this Eldorado seems to be in good shape in that regard. Now, let's talk about the cosmetic condition. The seller mentions that the car was repainted by the previous owner about 3 to 4 years ago with a pearl white finish, and that all the chrome was refinished at the same time. This is a good sign, as it means that the car has been well maintained and cared for. The interior seems to be in good shape as well, with the front bench seat having been recovered with appropriate leather for the make and model. The seller also notes that there are no major defects inside the car. One of the best things about this Eldorado is that all the fun features seem to be working. The AC works, although the seller notes that it works a bit, the power antenna, windows, and seat all work, and even the headlight covers and trunk closer assist are functioning properly. These are all great features to have in a classic car like this. Overall, this 1967 Cadillac Eldorado seems to be a solid buy for the right person. It's got a great look, a solid mechanical condition, and a bunch of fun features that all seem to be working. The minor rust spots and the age of the vehicle are things to keep in mind, but they don't seem to be deal breakers based on the seller's description. 6. We've got a real project car that's sure to get your engine revving. A 1968 Ford Torino GT that's up for sale on Craigslist. This beauty is priced at just $4,200, but before you start reaching for your wallet, let's dive into the details. First things first, it's important to note that this Torino GT is being sold as a roller. That means it doesn't have an engine installed, so you'll need to source one yourself. The seller mentions that the car was previously being driven with a 460 motor, but it's not included in the sale. Now, let's talk about the condition. The seller has done some serious work on this Torino, including shaving the fender wells and welding new material back into place to accommodate the larger 460 motor. They've also added an aftermarket subframe to the front suspension, along with Mustang power rack and pinion steering, power front disc brakes, and strut front suspension. These are all great upgrades that should make this Torino handle like a dream. However, it's important to keep in mind that this car is a project. The seller mentions that it needs finishing, so you'll need to be prepared to put in some work to get it road ready. The good news is that the transmission, rear end, and exhaust are all installed, so you've got a solid foundation to work with. One of the best things about this Torino is that it has no rust, which is a huge plus for a car of this age. Rust can be a real problem with older cars, so it's great to know that this one is solid in that regard. The seller also mentions that the car has a clear title, which is important for any project car purchase. As an added bonus, the seller is including a brand new set of aluminum rims with the car. They mention that these rims have a value of $1,000, so that's a nice little cherry on top of this already sweet deal. Overall, this 1968 Ford Torino GT is a project car that's not for the faint of heart. It's going to need some work to get it into top shape, but the seller has already done a lot of the heavy lifting with the suspension upgrades and rust-free body. If you're a Ford enthusiast who's looking for a project to sink your teeth into, this one might be worth checking out. Just be sure to do your due diligence and have a trusted mechanic take a look at it before making any final decisions. 7. We've got a real classic on our hands, a 1963 AMC Rambler that's up for grabs on Craigslist. This beauty is going for just $4,200, which seems like a steal for a piece of automotive history like this. Now let's dive into the details. The seller claims that this Rambler is in like-new condition, which is pretty impressive for a car that's nearly 60 years old. It's got a 6-cylinder engine under the hood and an automatic transmission, making it a breeze to drive. The odometer shows just 58,000 miles, which is relatively low for a car of this age. The ad also mentions that this Rambler is a hardtop coupe, which means it's got a solid roof instead of a convertible top. And check out that sleek black paint job. It's sure to turn heads wherever you go. However, it's important to take the seller's description with a grain of salt. While they claim the car is in like-new condition, it's always a good idea to inspect the vehicle in person and get a professional opinion before making a purchase. There could be hidden issues that aren't immediately apparent. That being said, if this Rambler is as good as the seller claims, it could be an incredible find. These cars are becoming increasingly rare, and finding one in such good condition is a real treat. One thing to note, the price listed in the ad is $22,900, which is significantly higher than the $4,200 mentioned earlier. It's unclear if this is a typo or if the price has been updated since the initial posting. Overall, this 1963 AMC Rambler seems like a fantastic opportunity for any classic car enthusiast. It's got a great look, low mileage, and a clean title. Just be sure to do your due diligence before making a purchase, and you could be the proud owner of a true piece of automotive history. 8. We've got a real treat for you, a 1981 Chevrolet Corvette that's up for grabs on Craigslist for just $14,000. This classic beauty is sure to turn heads and get your heart racing. First off, let's talk about the condition of this Corvette. The seller claims that it's in excellent shape, with minimal wear and tear, despite its age. That's pretty impressive for a car that's over 40 years old. The ad mentions that the engine and body are well maintained and run like a dream, which is exactly what you want to hear when you're considering a classic car. Moving on to the specs, this Corvette is powered by a beefy 8-cylinder engine and has a smooth shifting automatic transmission. It's also got rear-wheel drive, which is perfect for those who love a more engaging driving experience. And with just 56,000 miles on the odometer, this car has plenty of life left in it. One of the coolest things about this Corvette is that it's been updated with some modern conveniences without losing its classic charm. The seller installed a new Bluetooth radio so you can jam out to your favorite tunes while cruising down the highway. And for added peace of mind, there's a Viper security system installed to keep this beauty safe and sound. Now let's talk about the aesthetics. This Corvette is painted in a sleek white color that's sure to stand out in a crowd. The interior is also in great shape, with only minor wear and tear that's to be expected from a car of this age. Of course, as with any used car purchase, it's important to do your due diligence before making a decision. While the seller claims that this Corvette is in excellent condition, it's always a good idea to get a professional inspection and take it for a test drive to make sure everything is in working order. Overall, if you're in the market for a classic car that's sure to turn heads and provide plenty of driving enjoyment, this 1981 Chevrolet Corvette is definitely worth checking out. With its powerful engine, updated tech, and timeless styling, it's a car that's sure to bring a smile to your face every time you get behind the wheel. So what are you waiting for? Give the seller a call and schedule a viewing today. 9. We've got a real gem to share with you. A stunning 1961 Ford Thunderbird that's up for grabs on Craigslist. This classic beauty is priced at $25,000, and from what we can see, it's worth every penny. First off, let's talk about the condition of this T-Bird. The seller claims that it's in excellent shape, and based on the description, we have no reason to doubt them. The car has been repainted in a sleek black color with a white and gold top, giving it a truly luxurious look. The blue leather interior is also said to be in excellent condition, and the seller believes it may even be the original upholstery. Under the hood, this Thunderbird is powered by a 390 V8 engine and a 3-speed automatic transmission. The seller notes that the car runs great, which is always a good sign. They also mention that there's no rust, dents, or dings on the body, which is impressive for a car that's over 60 years old. It's clear that the current owner has taken great care of this car. They've had the front-end suspension redone, the bumpers re-chromed, and even put on new front tires. The only issue mentioned is a small power steering leak, which is a relatively minor problem that can be easily fixed. The seller also notes that the car has been garaged and rarely driven for many years, only being taken out for weekend drives and trips around town. This is great news for potential buyers, as it means the car hasn't been subjected to a lot of wear and tear. Of course, as with any used car purchase, it's always a good idea to get a professional inspection before making a final decision. But based on the description and the photos provided, this 1961 Ford Thunderbird seems like an excellent investment for any classic car enthusiast. The asking price of $25,000 may seem steep, but it's actually quite reasonable for a car of this caliber. Thunderbirds from this era are highly sought after by collectors, and finding one in such great condition is a rare opportunity. Overall, if you're in the market for a classic car that's sure to turn heads and provide plenty of driving enjoyment, this 1961 Ford Thunderbird is definitely worth checking out. With its luxurious look, powerful engine, and excellent condition, it's a car that's sure to bring a smile to your face every time you get behind the wheel. Don't miss out on this incredible opportunity. Give the seller a call and schedule a viewing today. 10. We've got a real treat for you. A custom 1969 Chevrolet Corvette that's up for grabs on Craigslist. This classic beauty is priced at $28,000, and it's definitely worth taking a closer look. First off, let's talk about the condition of this Corvette. The seller describes it as being in good condition, which is a positive sign. However, they do mention that there are a few issues that need to be addressed, so it's important to keep that in mind. Under the hood, This Corvette is powered by a 350 Vortec motor that's been tuned to produce 330 horsepower. That's a serious amount of power for a car of this era, and it's sure to provide plenty of thrills on the road. The seller also notes that the motor has less than 10,000 miles on it, which is relatively low. One of the coolest things about this Corvette is that it's equipped with a 4-speed manual transmission. This makes the car an absolute blast to drive, and it's sure to put a smile on your face every time you shift gears. The seller also mentions that the vacuum system has been deleted, except for the heat and air controls, which is a common modification for cars of this era. In terms of the suspension and brakes, the seller notes that they've been completely redone. This is great news, as it means the car should handle and stop like a dream. The front end has also been completely rebuilt, which is another positive sign. Now let's talk about the aesthetics. This Corvette is painted in a classic red color that's sure to turn heads wherever you go. The seller doesn't provide too many details about the interior, but based on the photos, it looks to be in decent shape. Of course, as with any used car purchase, it's important to do your due diligence before making a decision. The seller mentions that there are a few issues that need to be addressed, so it's crucial to get a professional inspection and find out exactly what those issues are. It's also worth noting that the odometer is broken, so it's unclear exactly how many miles this car has on it. Overall, if you're in the market for a classic Corvette with plenty of power and a manual transmission, this 1969 model is definitely worth checking out. With its custom modifications and rebuilt suspension and brakes, it's a car that's sure to provide plenty of driving enjoyment. 11. We've got a real gem to share with you, a stunning 1963 Ford that's up for grabs on Craigslist. This classic beauty is priced at just $13,900, and from what the seller tells us, it seems like an absolute steal. First off, let's talk about the condition of this Ford. The seller doesn't provide a ton of details, but they do mention that there are no dents and no rust on the body. That's a huge plus for a car that's nearly 60 years old. They also note that the interior has been completely redone, which is another great sign. Under the hood, this Ford is powered by a V8 engine and an automatic transmission. The seller says that it runs sweet, which is music to any car enthusiast's ears. A smooth-running V8 is the heart and soul of any classic American car, and it's great to hear that this one is in top shape. Now let's talk about the aesthetics. While the seller doesn't provide any photos, they do mention that this Ford is a beautiful car. That's a pretty bold claim, but given the lack of dents and rust, we're inclined to believe them. It's easy to imagine this classic cruising down the highway, turning heads and drawing envious stares from other drivers. Of course, as with any used car purchase, it's important to do your due diligence before making a decision. The seller doesn't provide a ton of details about the car's history or any potential issues, so it's crucial to get a professional inspection and ask plenty of questions before handing over any money. That being said, if this 1963 Ford is as good as the seller claims, it could be an incredible find. These classic cars are getting harder and harder to come by, especially in such good condition, and at just $13,900, it's a price that's hard to beat. Overall, if you're in the market for a classic American car with plenty of style and a powerful V8 engine, this 1963 Ford is definitely worth checking out. It's got a clean title, a new interior, and a sweet-running engine. What more could you ask for? 12. We've got a real treat for you, a gorgeous 1973 Chevrolet Corvette that's up for grabs on Craigslist. This classic beauty is priced at $19,000, and based on the seller's description, it seems like a fantastic deal. First off, let's talk about the history of this Corvette. The seller mentions that it's a California car, originally sold by Harriman Chevrolet in Los Angeles. That's a great sign, as California cars are known for being well-maintained and rust-free due to the state's dry climate. The seller also notes that the car has been stored indoors all its life, which is another huge plus. Now, let's dive into the specs. This Corvette is powered by a 350 L82 small block engine that puts out 250 horsepower. That's plenty of power to get this classic moving, and the seller mentions that it has lots of get up and go. The car also has an automatic transmission, power steering, and disc brakes, making it easy and comfortable to drive. One of the coolest features of this Corvette is the T-tops, which allow you to open up the roof and enjoy the sunshine while cruising down the road. The seller also mentions that the car has air conditioning, which is a must-have for those hot summer days. In terms of condition, the seller describes this Corvette as being in good shape. The paint and interior are said to be in very good condition, with the car having been repainted back in the 1990s. The exterior is finished in the original orange color, while the interior is a dark saddle shade. The seller also notes that the car comes with a partial tank sticker, build sheet, which is a cool piece of history for any Corvette enthusiast. Of course, as with any used car purchase, it's important to do your due diligence before making a decision. While the seller provides a lot of great information about the car, it's always a good idea to get a professional inspection and take it for a test drive to make sure everything is in working order. Overall, if you're in the market for a classic Corvette that's been well maintained and has plenty of power, this 1973 model is definitely worth checking out. With its California history, indoor storage, and great condition, it's a car that's sure to turn heads and provide plenty of driving enjoyment. 13. We've got a real classic on our hands, a 1972 Chevrolet Corvette that's up for grabs on Craigslist. This beauty is priced at $21,000, which seems like a fair deal for a piece of American muscle car history. First off, let's talk about the specs. This Corvette is powered by a 350 cubic inch V8 engine, which is mated to a 4-speed manual transmission. That's the kind of combo that gets any gearhead's heart racing. The seller also mentions that the car has new tires, which is always a plus. Now let's dive into the condition of this Corvette. The seller describes it as being in good shape, which is a positive sign. They mention that the paint job has the usual scratches you'd expect from an older car, but overall it seems to be in decent condition. The seller also notes that they've replaced the seat cushions, which is a nice touch. One thing that really stands out about this Corvette is the service history. The seller mentions that they have paperwork dating back to the 1970s, which is a real treasure trove for any collector. It's always great to have a clear picture of how a car has been maintained over the years. The seller also mentions that this Corvette has a Pertronix ignition conversion, which is a popular upgrade for classic cars. This can help improve reliability and performance, which is always a good thing. Now let's talk about the driving experience. The seller describes this Corvette as a nice driving, running car, which is exactly what you want to hear. With that powerful V8 engine and manual transmission, this car is sure to be a blast to drive. And with those new tires, you can feel confident that it will handle well on the road. Of course, as with any used car purchase, it's important to do your due diligence before making a decision. While the seller provides a lot of great information about the car, it's always a good idea to get a professional inspection and take it for a test drive to make sure everything is in working order. Overall, if you're in the market for a classic Corvette with a great service history and a powerful drivetrain, this 1972 model is definitely worth checking out. With its good condition, new tires, and Pertronix ignition upgrade, it seems like a solid choice for any enthusiast. And at $21,000, it's priced fairly for a car of this caliber. If you're interested, don't hesitate to reach out to the seller and schedule a viewing. This Corvette is sure to turn heads wherever it goes. 14. We've got a real piece of automotive history up for grabs on Craigslist, a 1977 Pontiac Firebird Trans Am, just like the one made famous in the classic film Smokey and the Bandit. This iconic muscle car is priced at $30,000, and while it's not in perfect condition, it offers a fantastic opportunity for collectors and enthusiasts to own a piece of American car culture. First off, let's talk about what makes this Trans Am so special. As the seller mentions, this car is a true icon of the 1970s, thanks in large part to its starring role in Smokey and the Bandit. The movie helped cement the Trans Am's status as a symbol of rebellion, freedom, and pure automotive cool. And this particular car has all the key features that made the Trans Am so desirable. Under the hood, you'll find the original numbers matching 6.6L V8 engine, which is a huge selling point for collectors. Having the original engine adds a ton of value and authenticity to the car, and it's the kind of thing that really gets enthusiasts excited. The car also has an automatic transmission, which may not be as exciting as a manual for some drivers, but it does make the car more accessible and easier to drive. One of the coolest features of this Trans Am is the factory T-tops, which allow you to open up the roof and enjoy the wind in your hair while cruising down the highway. It's a feature that really adds to the car's fun factor and makes it stand out from other muscle cars of the era. Now, let's talk about the condition of this Trans Am. The seller is upfront about the fact that this is a project car that needs some work, but they also point out the incredible potential for restoration. The car has been repainted at some point, but the seller notes that the preparation was subpar, leading to some uneven paint and misaligned body panels. There's also some oxidation on the underbody and a few dents here and there. Inside, the car needs some attention as well. The upholstery is worn, the seat belts are rigged, and the air conditioning compressor is missing. These are all things that will need to be addressed during the restoration process. Mechanically, the car also needs some work. The seller mentions that the suspension, brakes, and exhaust all need attention, and there are some oil leaks that are typical of vintage vehicles like this. 15. We've got a real gem to share with you. A stunning 1966 Chrysler Newport that's up for grabs on Craigslist. This classic beauty is priced at $25,000, and based on the seller's description, it seems like an absolute steal. First off, let's talk about the condition of this Newport. The seller describes it as being in excellent shape, which is a huge plus for a car that's over 50 years old. They mention that it's a Central Oregon car, which means it's been spared from the ravages of rust that can plague classic cars in other parts of the country. That's a really big deal for collectors and enthusiasts who value originality and preservation. Now, let's dive into the juicy details. The seller mentions that this Newport has undergone some serious mechanical overhauls, including a rebuilt transmission, motor, and rear end. That's the kind of work that can really bring a classic car back to life and ensure that it runs like a dream. It's clear that someone has put a lot of love and care into this vehicle, but the upgrades don't stop there. The seller also notes that the car has a new headliner, weather stripping, and carpet. These might seem like small details, but they can make a big difference in the overall look and feel of a classic car. It's great to see that the interior has been given just as much attention as the mechanicals. Of course, the real star of the show here is the car itself. The 1966 Chrysler Newport is a true icon of the era, with its bold styling, spacious interior, and powerful V8 engine. This particular car is finished in a stunning red paint job that's sure to turn heads wherever it goes. And with just 58,469 miles on the odometer, it's got plenty of life left in it. Now, I know what you might be thinking. $25,000 is a lot of money for a classic car. And you're right, it's not a small sum. But when you consider the work that's gone into this Newport, as well as its excellent condition and low mileage, it starts to look like a pretty great deal. Plus, the seller is open to offers, so there may be some wiggle room on the price. Of course, as with any used car purchase, it's important to do your due diligence before making a decision. While the seller provides a lot of great information about the car, it's always a good idea to get a professional inspection and take it for a test drive to make sure everything is in working order. 16. We've got a real blast from the past to share with you. A 1983 Chevy Caprice that's up for grabs on Craigslist. This classic American sedan is priced at just $6,800, which seems like a pretty sweet deal based on the seller's description. First off, let's talk about the condition of this Caprice. The seller describes it as being in good shape, which is always a positive sign for a car that's nearly 40 years old. They mention that it's been well maintained by its single owner, which is the kind of history you love to see with a classic car. Now let's dive into the features. This Caprice comes loaded with power locks, windows, and mirrors, which is pretty impressive for a car from the early 80s. The seller also notes that the AC, heater, and radio all work well, which is a big plus for anyone who wants to cruise in comfort. Under the hood, you'll find a 5.0L V8 engine that's clocked just 99 to 500 miles. That's a pretty low number for a car of this age, and it suggests that this Caprice has been driven sparingly and treated with care. The seller mentions that the car runs well, which is exactly what you want to hear. One thing that really stands out about this Caprice is its originality. The seller notes that it's all original, which is a huge selling point for collectors and enthusiasts who value authenticity. It's getting harder and harder to find classic cars that haven't been heavily modified or restored, so this Caprice is a real gem in that regard. Of course, as with any used car purchase, it's important to do your due diligence before making a decision. While the seller provides a lot of great information about the car, it's always a good idea to get a professional inspection and take it for a test drive to make sure everything is in working order. That being said, if this Caprice is as good as the seller claims, it could be an incredible find. These cars are becoming increasingly rare, especially in such good condition and with such low mileage. And at just $6,800, it's a price that's hard to beat for a piece of American automotive history. 17. We've got a real icon of American muscle up for grabs on Craigslist, a 1965 Ford Mustang that's sure to get your heart racing. This classic pony car is priced at $25,000, and based on the seller's description, it seems like it could be a great deal for the right buyer. First off, let's talk about the condition of this Mustang. The seller describes it as being in good shape, which is always a positive sign for a car that's over 50 years old. They mention that the car runs great and has been well maintained over the years, which is exactly what you want to hear when you're considering a classic car purchase. One of the most impressive things about this Mustang is the rebuilt 302 engine that was installed by American Mustang in May 2016. This is a big selling point, as it suggests that the car has been given a new lease on life and should have plenty of power and reliability. The seller also notes that they have all the repair and maintenance records available, which is great for peace of mind. Another cool thing about this Mustang is that it comes with the original owner's manual, which is a nice touch for collectors and enthusiasts who value authenticity and history. The seller also mentions that the car has low mileage and has been stored in a garage, which suggests that it hasn't been subjected to a lot of wear and tear over the years. Now, there are a couple of things to keep in mind with this Mustang. The seller notes that the odometer is broken and is rolled over, which means that the actual mileage of the car is unknown. This isn't necessarily a deal breaker, but it's something to consider when you're evaluating the overall condition and value of the car. The seller also doesn't provide a ton of details about the specific features and options on this Mustang, so you'll want to ask some follow-up questions if you're seriously interested in making a purchase. Things like the transmission type, interior condition, and any additional upgrades or modifications are all important factors to consider. Overall, if you're in the market for a classic Mustang that's been well maintained and has a rebuilt engine, this 1965 model is definitely worth checking out. It's got a clean title, a cool history, and a price tag that seems reasonable for a car of this caliber. Of course, as with any used car purchase, it's always a good idea to get a professional inspection and take it for a test drive before making a final decision. 18. We've got a real classic up for grabs on Craigslist, a 1968 Dodge Dart that's sure to get your engine revving. This vintage beauty is priced at just $4,900, which seems like a pretty sweet deal based on the seller's description. First off, let's talk about the condition of this Dart. The seller describes it as being in good shape, which is always a positive sign for a car that's over 50 years old. They mention that it's a daily driver, which suggests that it's been well maintained and is in good running condition. Under the hood, you'll find a 225 slant-6 engine, which is a reliable and efficient power plant that's known for its durability. The seller also notes that the car has an automatic transmission, which makes it easy to drive and great for cruising around town. Now, let's talk about the exterior. The seller mentions that there is some rust under the rear window and a few pinholes here and there on the roof. They also note that the driver's side quarter panel has had some filler work done, as well as the bottom of the passenger side quarter. While this might be a turnoff for some buyers, it's important to keep in mind that a little rust and bodywork is pretty common for a car of this age. On the plus side, the seller has made some recent upgrades to the car, including new tires, a new gas tank, fuel pump, and master cylinder. This suggests that they've been putting some money and effort into keeping the car in good running condition. The seller also notes that the car is pretty complete and original, which is a big selling point for collectors and enthusiasts who value authenticity. And with just 79,709 miles on the odometer, which has rolled over once, this Dart has plenty of life left in it. Of course, as with any used car purchase, it's important to do your due diligence before making a decision. While the seller provides a lot of great information about the car, it's always a good idea to get a professional inspection and take it for a test drive to make sure everything is in working order. 19. We've got an absolute stunner of a classic car to share with you. A 1961 Ford Thunderbird that's up for grabs on Craigslist. This beauty is priced at $19,000, and based on the seller's description, it seems like an absolute dream come true for any vintage car lover. First off, let's talk about the condition of this T-Bird. The seller describes it as being in excellent shape, which is music to any car enthusiast's ears. They mention that it's a bone stock car, which means it hasn't been modified or altered from its original factory specifications. This is a huge plus for collectors and purists who value authenticity and originality. Now let's dive into the juicy details. Under the hood, you'll find a rebuilt 390 motor that's paired with a C6 transmission. This is a powerful and reliable combination that's sure to provide plenty of thrills on the open road. The seller also notes that the car has power steering, power seats, and power windows, which are all highly desirable features in a classic car. One of the most striking things about this Thunderbird is its gorgeous bright red paint job. The seller mentions that the paint is in great condition, which is a testament to the care and attention that's been given to this car over the years. They also note that the body is straight and free of any major dents or damage, which is always a good sign. Inside, the interior is said to be clean and in good condition. The seller doesn't provide a ton of details about the specific features and options, but based on the photos, it looks like a comfortable and stylish place to spend some time behind the wheel. Another cool thing about this Thunderbird is that it has air conditioning, which is a rare and highly sought-after feature in a car of this age. The seller does note that the AC needs to be refilled with R12 refrigerant, but this is a relatively minor issue that can be easily addressed. Overall, if you're in the market for a classic Thunderbird that's in excellent condition and has all the right features, this 1961 model is definitely worth checking out. It's got a clean title, a powerful engine, and a stunning appearance that's sure to turn heads wherever you go. 20. We're checking out a pretty interesting find on Craigslist, a 1972 Oldsmobile Delta 88 Royale convertible that's definitely caught my attention. Let me tell you why this land yacht is worth talking about. First off, we're looking at a fairly rare bird here. Only 3,900 of these convertibles were made in '72. And this one's been soaking up the Arizona sun since 1991 with its second owner. That's actually great news for the body, as the seller claims there's no rust anywhere, a huge plus for a 50-year-old car. Under the hood, you've got the mighty 455 Rocket V8, paired with a Carter Competition 4-barrel carb and the reliable Turbo-Hydra-Matic transmission. For you performance enthusiasts, these engines were absolute torque monsters back in the day. The odometer shows 98,735 miles, which isn't bad at all for its age. The seller's been keeping up with some important updates. There's a brand new convertible top with a parade boot, and they've converted the factory AC to R134A, which is crucial for Arizona weather. You're also getting all the power goodies: steering, brakes, and windows. Now let's be real here. The seller lists the condition as fair, so don't expect a showroom perfect car. At $12,000, you're getting a piece of American luxury history that needs some TLC. But these old Delta 88 convertibles are getting harder to find, especially in rust-free condition. Whether you're looking to cruise it as is, restore it to its former glory, or even turn it into a lowrider as the seller suggests, this big olds represents that classic early 70s American luxury that just doesn't exist anymore. They really don't make them like this anymore. That's not just a saying, it's the truth.